Would you hold them up with me? This is my Bible.
This is my Bible.
I am what it says I am.
I am what it says I am.
I have what it says I have.
I have what it says I have.
I can do what it says I can do.
I can do what it says I can do.
Today I'll be taught the Word of God.
Today I'll be taught the Word of God.
I boldly confess.
I boldly confess.
My mind is alert.
My mind is alert.
My heart is receptive.
My heart is receptive.
And I'll never be the same.
I'll never be the same.
Amen. Take your Bibles now and turn to Matthew chapter 20. I'm going to start reading at verse 17. If you have your Bibles, you can follow along. If not, it's up on the screen. It says, "As Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside privately and told them what was going to happen. 'Listen,' he said, 'we're going to Jerusalem, where the Son of Man will be betrayed to the leading priests and teachers of the religious law. They will sentence him to die. Then they will hand him over to the Romans to be mocked, flogged with a whip, and crucified. But on the third day he will be raised from the dead.' Then the mother of James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus with her sons. She knelt respectfully to ask a favor. 'What is your request?' he asked. She replied, 'In your kingdom, please let my 2 sons sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left.' But Jesus answered by saying to them, 'You don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I'm about to drink?' 'Oh yes,' they replied, 'we are able.' Jesus told them, 'You will indeed drink from my bitter cup, but I have no right to say who will sit on my right or my left. My Father has prepared those places for the ones He has chosen.' When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. But Jesus called them together and said, 'You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give His life as a ransom for many.'" So, as we continue our study in the book of Matthew, we see that they're getting ready to go to Jerusalem, which we're going to get into that whole final week of Jesus' life here, starting in chapter 21. So, they're getting ready to enter Jerusalem. Jesus knows what's about to happen, okay? He knows that suddenly everybody's going to turn against Him, and that they're going to crucify Him, and that the disciples are going to be there and witness it. And He's already told them on a couple of occasions, get ready for this to happen. Because you got to realize the disciples were good Jewish people, and they're still waiting for their Messiah to come and overthrow the Romans and set up a kingdom right now. Not somebody that's going to set up a future kingdom, not somebody that's going to come and be crucified. They're expecting some great warrior to come in and overthrow everybody. Okay? And so He's trying to prepare them, because they've already said, they've acknowledged already that they think Jesus is the Messiah. Remember when Jesus asked Peter, "Who do you say that I am?" And he said that He was Christ, the Son of the living God. So they already had acknowledged that. But now He's trying to get their minds prepped for what's getting ready to happen, okay? So now you got this process going on, and the disciples aren't catching on. They have a hard time with catching on to things, a lot like some of us do. You know, we can be told the same thing over and over, and we just don't get it until way later after it happens. Well, that's the disciples' position. So much so that Jesus just tells them, "Hey, I'm going to be killed here real soon. We're going to Jerusalem, where I'm going to be handed over to the Romans and flogged and whipped and crucified. 10 seconds later, James and John and their mama comes over and says, hey, in your kingdom, because, they're still thinking about this kingdom that's going to be established here real soon. Can my boys sit on the right and left of you like as your right hand and left hand man? Because those were the places of honor. The king, the people that sat on the right and left of the king were usually his top advisors or the top people in the kingdom. And so, James and John, they want to make sure that they get recognized and that they have seats of honor and authority when this kingdom comes. Because, they've abandoned their whole lives to follow Jesus. They abandoned the family business. They left their father behind. And they want to make sure, and their mom wants to make sure that because they've made great sacrifice that they're going to get something out of it. So can they sit in places of honor? And Jesus obviously says, you don't know even what you're asking. You don't understand. You still don't understand what's going to happen. He said, and he asks them, can you drink from this bitter cup of sorrow that I'm about to have to drink from? And of course, they don't understand all the stuff here. And they're like, oh, of course we can. We'll do it. We're ready. We'll do it. And Jesus lets them know because, as you know, the disciples were all persecuted in some way later, and that they would eventually partake of their own bitter suffering too. And they would witness his as well. But then he goes on to say that in his kingdom it's going to be different. It's not going to be like it is in the world's kingdom. It's not going to be like it is in the world where the rulers and leaders have authority over people and they take advantage of the people that they have authority over and they flaunt their authority and they make sure that they let the people under them know that they have the power over them, okay? In his kingdom, it's not going to work that way. It's going to be a different setup to be a leader in God's kingdom. Basically is what Jesus says. He says, in my kingdom, among you, the followers, so among you, the followers, the leaders are going to be servants. The leaders are going to be the ones that serve others. The leaders are going to be the ones that put their own needs aside to make sure the needs of other people are met. They're going to be the ones that do for others, that help others, that go the extra mile for people. They're going to be the servants. And at one point he even says, to be first among you that have to become your slave. The ones that will be first. And you know how everybody wants to be first, right? And so he even then says, listen, if anybody could be served, it'd be me. Basically, this is the last statement of this. If anybody could be served, it was me. But even I, the Son of Man, came not to be served, but to serve others and give my life as a ransom for many. Jesus, the Son of God, God incarnate, could have had lots of servants on the earth, you know it? He could have called down angels to serve him. He could have demanded from on high that people just be his servants, but he didn't. He served others. He went the extra mile for people. He talked with people that nobody else would talk to. He healed people. He did for others more than he worried about his own self. Matter of fact, he served to his death the needs of others. All right, so what does this story have to do with people today? Well, everybody wants to be great and recognized, don't we? We all like to get patted on the back and somebody say, we'd like to recognize Joe Bell for his hard work and not snoring during church. We recognize that Joe, he's a good guy. And everybody likes a little bit of recognition. And we'd all like to think that one day, maybe in the kingdom of heaven, we'll receive some kind of honor. Wouldn't we? That maybe God would look down on our measly little lives in existence and say, well, that guy did a great job, so we're going to have a plaque for him in heaven. In honor of Carl Huff. The house that Carl Huff built, and to be a little mansion in heaven or whatever. You know what I mean? We all would like to have some kind of recognition for what we did. And see, James and John, they were the same. They wanted to be recognized. Hey, we've given a lot, we've done a lot, we've helped a lot. We'd like to have at least some kind of recognition. Can we at least sit in places of honor later on? We're not asking you to make us knights right now. But if we could just have the chairs next to you. It sounds so trivial. But people want to be recognized. People want to be honored. And I think one of the things that causes a lot of people to be disgruntled with the church is, because I've seen this happen before, when somebody gets recognized for doing something and they don't. And it may not even be the same thing, but they feel like, oh, well, they recognized Jackie, but they didn't recognize me. I did as much work as Jackie, but just nobody knew it, or just nobody saw it. And then they feel like they're unappreciated and sometimes leave the church. It happens. I've heard people say that they left the church because nobody there appreciated their hard work, or nobody there cared about them and all that they did, and things like that. It happens because we all have a desire to be recognized. We all want to be great. We all want to be leaders in the church. And the ones that pioneer new things and do new things. But here's the thing. Jesus wasn't there to hand out honorary certificates. Wasn't there to say, now when you get to heaven, you'll find your name engraved on the street of gold like a Hollywood star square. James and John. No, he said, listen guys, it's not about that. That's not what it's all about. If you only do things to be recognized, you only do something with the hope or thought that you're going to get a plaque or a certificate or somebody's going to pat you on the back. Basically, Jesus says you're doing it for the wrong reason. Because he says, leaders, the people that are, doing things, the people that have followers, the people that are going to advance the church are going to have to be servants of others. Now think about this. How often did a servant get an honorary recognition? The servants weren't treated well. The servant slaves weren't treated well. They didn't hang plaques up in the barn that said, in memory of whoever who worked really hard feeding the cattle for years. No, they don't do that. Right? The servants were the lowest positions. The servants were the ones who really were forgotten unless they were all gone and somebody had to do the work themselves. And they really were not honored and recognized. But Jesus says those positions, those people are going to be the ones honored in the kingdom. If you want to be a leader in this kingdom, among our people, among those that choose to follow me, it's going to be the ones who are willing to do more, who are willing to go the extra step, who are willing to put aside their needs to meet the needs of others, who are willing to do things that they don't want to do, who are willing to be kind to their enemies, and who are willing to love their neighbor as themselves, and never ever have it broadcast on Times Square that they're good people. They just do it because they love people. They just do it because Jesus loved them. So in response to that, they choose to love others because, one of the great commandments was to love our neighbors as ourselves. And I've always said, we love ourselves pretty well. So we should really be doing a lot better for others if it's in comparison to how we love us. Okay? And so, if to be great in the kingdom requires being a servant, or to be a leader in the kingdom requires being a servant, think about where we might rank in that. I mean, think about the last time that you served someone else. I mean, Jesus called on us to serve our enemies. He said, love your enemies. Be good to those who do awful things to you. Feed them. Give them drinks of cold water. Take care of your enemies. Be a servant even to the people who despise you. Even to the people who don't like you. Be a servant to those people. And then think about how we act and how we treat people who we consider our enemies. Think about how we treat people who we consider our friends. I mean, it's sad, but think about how people talk about their own friends and their own people when their friend, their own people aren't around. It's terrible. Listen, if anybody had a right to be served, it would have been Jesus, okay? But Jesus said He came not to be served, but to serve. Think of the ways that Jesus served. Jesus went out and healed people, didn't He? People that nobody else even wanted to associate with, people that nobody else even wanted to talk to, people that would have been left out by every standard there was. Jesus went to those people as a servant. He didn't go to those people and say, now if you can fix me dinner, I will heal your leprosy. Or if you can give us 50 gold coins, I will make sure that your mom can walk. It wasn't like that. He had the heart of a servant. He didn't profit from healing. He didn't profit from walking and teaching those people. He didn't profit from all of that. Well, I think we fail to realize a lot of times that Jesus was like a poor homeless man walking the planet. And we want to be leaders and want to be recognized and want people to take good care of us. When Jesus focused, Jesus was always out taking care of the people. He was always out doing for the people. He was with them. He slept with he slept where the disciples slept. He didn't get the penthouse suite and let them sleep out on the ground. If they slept on the ground, Jesus slept on the ground. If they had to be in a boat in a wind and rainstorm, Jesus was in the boat in a wind and rainstorm. Jesus truly was a servant. He washed the disciples' feet. He did everything for everybody. It said that people would come and bring their sick, and Jesus would heal them all. Even after a long day of already doing stuff, He healed them anyways. When the people were hungry and they were out listening to Him teach, He fed them. He didn't. Remember, the disciples wanted to send them home. Tell these people to go home. It's going to be dark soon. They won't be able to stop by the Taco Bell. They got to get out of here before fourth meal has expired. Get them home. And Jesus said, no, just have them sit down. We're going to feed them. You're going to feed them. Because He had a servant's heart. Because He cared about people. And sometimes I think that is where we fall the shortest, is in caring about other people and serving other people. How willing are we to do something for someone else? Especially if it's someone that we don't like, or someone that we feel like might be taking advantage of us or milking the system, so to speak. How likely are we to be a servant to those kind of people? To offer them our time or our resources or just someone to talk to. Because people need our help. There's a whole world outside of our four walls that desperately needs Jesus. There's a whole world out there. And instead of being servants and being willing to go out to those people, we want to be recognized inside here. We want to have great acclaim and fame, and we want people to put up plaques with our pictures on them and statues of us outside the front door. Hey, that's what they do. You go to any professional sports stadium, they got statues out there of former great players or coaches or whoever. And in some church libraries, there's little molded heads of heroes of the faith. I mean, like, little statue heads that hold the books up on the end of the bookshelf. And it seems like we're more interested in those things than we are a lost world. A world of people who need willing servants. Jesus said, if you're going to be a leader, it starts with being a servant. Let me tell you something. A leader can't be a leader if he doesn't have any followers. You know it? You can't lead if nobody goes with you. You can't lead if nobody follows. And that may be one of the biggest problems that we have in the world today. Everybody wants to be a leader, but nobody really wants to follow where they're going. Because all they're concerned about is their own agenda and their own self and what they're going to get out of something. And Jesus said, hey, listen, guys, I came not to be served, but to serve and to give my life as a ransom for many. Paid the price for all of us so that we could be part of this kingdom. He paid the price so that you and I could be forgiven of our sins, so that you and I could partake in His kingdom and become Christian people. Okay? He did that because He cared about us. And we then in return, shouldn't we be willing to give at least some of our life, some of our existence, so that people can hear the good news, so that people can be reached, so that people's lives can be transformed? Because let me tell you something. People, they've said this lots of times, people don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I really believe that's true. People don't care what you think you know, or what you are, super smart at, or what you have degrees in, unless they know you care. And the way to show that we care is through being a servant. Through serving others. And I think it's important that we create opportunities to serve, which we try to do. We've got to do better at. We got to create opportunities for people to serve. You guys really probably have lots of opportunities to be servants out in the world, and maybe you don't even realize it. But we got to learn to take advantage of opportunities to serve others. Not just people in the church, but people outside the church. Sure, people in the church too. But to really get to where Jesus was trying to get to really get us to the place where Jesus wants us to be, which is He wants us to serve others. Not because it's a a rule, but because out of love. Out of love, because Jesus loved you. And that love overflows then out of your heart into the lives of others. And that's what transforms people, is the love of Christ. The love that Jesus had for creation, the love that Jesus had for humanity, for all of His creatures. That even though they didn't know it, and even though some of them despised Him anyways, that He really loved them and cared about them and was concerned about their well-being. And see, as followers, we should be the same way. People should see the same thing in us, that we care about them irregardless of whether they care about us or not, irregardless of whether they like us or not, that we care about them anyway.